Good evening and welcome to Travel News, sort of Corona edition. My name is Maggie Gomez, the Nomadelle, and this section of my channel is dedicated to all of you travel nomads out there who are involuntarily sedentary just as I am. Today is Friday, May the 15th of 2020, and this weekly travel news segment is my personal attempt to answer two questions. One, when are we going to be able to travel again? And two, what will travel look like when the travel restrictions are lifted? So if this is your first time watching this channel, welcome, and to bring you up to speed, a few months ago I quit my job, I got rid of everything I owned, and I bought a one-way ticket to South America because I wanted to backpack throughout the world. And my flight was scheduled for May 1st of 2020. Obviously, because of coronavirus, none of that took place. So here I am in an empty house trying to make sense of everything. So I am very, very vested in understanding when and how we're going to be able to travel again. So if that interests you, feel free to subscribe, because if you do, and if you leave a comment or a question, you are entered in the monthly raffle to win a signed copy of my recently published book, A Year Off. But more details at the end of this video. So last week we talked about Greg Hart. He is the Chief Operation Officer for United Airlines, who was quoted saying that employees should seriously consider separating from the airline. And check out that video right here for more details as to why he said that, along with a complete Warren Buffett detail on his sellout on all his travel stocks. So this week, let's talk about TUI. If you're from Europe, you probably know who TUI is. If you are a US citizen living in the US, very likely you've never heard of TUI. However, if you're a US citizen and your livelihood depends on travel, then you definitely want to know who TUI is. TUI is short for Touristic Union International, and it's an Anglo-German multinational travel and tourism company, probably the largest one in Europe. That's what Wikipedia says, at least, so I would not know. But in an article written by Noah Manskar and published by the New York Post on Wednesday, May 13 of 2020, TUI CEO Fritz Joussen is quoted announcing the cut of 8,000 jobs amid coronavirus. And that constitutes about 12% of its workforce. So first of all, collectively, I can say as a community, our thoughts go to you if you are impacted by this cut of 8,000 jobs. So stay strong. Again, we are definitely on this together, and things will eventually get better. So please hang in there. So why did I pick this article? Why did I think that this article was important? Even though extremely sad, given the circumstances, I think it's important to understand that this is the first formal action taken by an airline company amid coronavirus. So if a company as robust as TUI is cutting off jobs, who knows, who's next and what is going to happen next. So that's very unfortunate, but that is the time that we are living right now. Along those lines, I heard of an expert last week predicting prices, airfare prices to be reduced as soon as the travel restrictions are lifted. I still don't agree that that's going to happen, maybe to some extent in terms of the airfare itself, in order to attract people to travel. Maybe, but at the same time, I truly believe that other fees are going to be added to that airfare in order to compensate for any price reduction if that ever materializes. So for example, carry-on fees, if the airline never had one, very likely now they will have one. Same with the check-in luggage, or also with meals. I don't even want to think about how different meals are going to look like, not only in terms of pricing, so I would definitely expect to be paying for meals that I didn't have to pay before, but also the presentation of the meals is going to look completely different. The packaging and everything, just in order to avoid, contamination due to coronavirus and things like that. So that is my take on it. Of course, I am, again, not an expert on it, so what do I know? I'm very interested to learn, to understand what you think about it, so feel free to comment below on that. Now, at the pace we're going, sadly, we're not going to have to worry about that for a long time. The next topic is inspired by a question asked by Max from the Netherlands, and he asked a question about the situation in South America with respect to inbound travel. So Max, first of all, thank you so much for your question, and thank you so much for subscribing and for being the first subscriber who comments or asks a question. You will receive absolutely free a signed copy of my book, A Year Off. So more details at the end of the video, and I thank you again. Now, along with that question, coincidentally, my brother a couple of weeks ago had pointed out to me that there were still some flights operational. So I was curious about that, because if that was the case, then I wanted to find out, where those flights were departing from and going to, in case I had a chance to go to Santiago, Chile. It was going to be my first leg, just because I am originally from Chile. That's my hometown. So the first reason why flights are still operational is because of importing and exporting goods. So that obviously is not going to be restricted due to coronavirus. That still continues. And the second reason is airport slot regulations. And I knew this one because I worked for American Airlines for 2 years, a long time ago. And what that is all airplanes on all airports have to fly their normal routes, even if there are no passengers on the flight. And that is part of a regulation that stipulates that you have to fly your scheduled routes in order not to lose your routes in that market space. So it's kind of like owning a TV show, right? Even if there are no people watching that show, if you don't present that show at the given day and time that is scheduled, there are a million other shows right behind you fighting for that spot. So if you don't show that program, right, you get kicked out and the next one comes in. So that's kind of the reasoning behind it. However, what I did learn is that up until maybe a couple of months ago, that was the case, but given coronavirus, given COVID-19, those regulations had to be relaxed, which makes sense because it costs so much to fuel up those planes to go from point A to point B that if the plane had no passengers, there was seriously a lot of money being wasted. So makes sense. However, the only exception to that rule is if the airline received any governmental bailout, then you had to still continue with those scheduled flights, and sadly still the case. The third and last reason why flights are still operational are for repatriation purposes. Now on May, not as much as March or April, when coronavirus was announced as a global pandemic. And I'll explain what repatriation is in case you don't know. So if there is an emergency where an evacuation is required, right? For example, terrorism or the pandemic, COVID-19, or a natural disaster, right? Normally, embassies will get a hold of you. In the case of the US, we have a program called STEP, which is short for Smart Traveler Enrollment Program. In fact, check out this video right here where I talk all about it, the benefits and how to enroll if you're interested. But in any case, once you enroll your trip, that embassy is going to know where you are. So if there's an emergency, they're going to be able to get a hold of you, to reach out to you and help you evacuate. They're not going to pay for the evacuation itself. That is still the responsibility of the travel. However, they're going to provide you with guidelines, and they're going to work with the commercial airlines in order to schedule flights to bring you back home. So those are the benefits, among many others, of enrolling in a program such as STEP. And so therefore, there's still some flights going on to repatriate those citizens. The ones that I know obviously are the U.S. Repatriation flights, just because I am in the U.S. and I am a U.S. citizen, so I'm very curious to know how your country, if you're not from the U.S., managed repatriation. So let me know as well. So besides the three above mentioned reasons why a flight could be operational still nowadays, there shouldn't be any other non-essential travel going on right now. But if you know of any travel going on right now, please let me know, because I would be very curious to understand those guidelines. So in fact, let's briefly touch upon the interview by Nick Robertson from CNN Travel to Greece Prime Minister Kyriakos Mitsotakis. Now, if you have a moment to watch that video, I would strongly recommend it. It's very detailed as to all the precautions that were taken by Greece to dodge the COVID-19 bullet. So to such an extent that this European country has tentatively, and that's the key word right there, tentatively has announced that the reopening of its border for July 1st of this year, 2020. Which is very impressive. However, Mr. Mitsotakis understands that even though tourism accounts for 20% of Greece's economy, right, and opening the borders could signify an economic salvation, right? It could very well mean a second wave of corona cases. So is it worth it? Who knows? It really depends on how that is managed, right? And that's exactly the issue. That's the challenge. It is not clear yet what could be done by Greece, who is wanting to open its borders, or by any country which gradually wants to start introducing tourism without a vaccine. One suggestion that Mr. Mitsotakis recommends would be to be tested at your home country before you arrived at your destination country. Now, that sounds like a great idea. How feasible would that be for all the countries to implement that? There's got to be a way. Definitely a good suggestion. What will that look like? Well, more of that next week, hopefully, along with what airports are doing currently to adapt to the new travel norms. Okay, so all right, so now for the fun part. I wrote this book that describes the 25 steps that I took to plan that gap year, from budgeting to monetizing on your passions to understanding how to shop for travel insurance. So the title of the book is A Year Off: How to Take a Gap Year and Travel the World, even if you are on a budget. For now, I will raffle one book a month until I get enough subscribers where I can hopefully raffle one to one random participant once a week. Subscribe, comment, ask any travel related questions. I would love to, of course, send you that a signed copy of that book wherever you are in the world. So hopefully you win one, and hopefully you like it. If you don't like it, well, you can use it as a pillow on your next travel. So so that's it. Thank you so much for watching. Stay home or wherever you need to stay strong, stay creative. This is Maggie with the Nomadel, sort of reporting from Cincinnati, Ohio. Good night, you all.